At the start of the First Opium War in 1839, China was the most technologically advanced country in the world. It had already invented, as Loki pointed out, gunpowder in the 9th century, hydraulics, ship's rudders, the stirrup, paper, movable type printing, and much more. But it was their beautiful porcelain and silks, tea, lacquer, and furniture that drove the enthusiasm for chinoiserie in Britain in the 18th and 19th centuries. Because Britain had little to trade with China that they didn't already have, rough woolens and clockwork toys being top of the list on offer, Britain's treasury was being drained to satisfy the public's appetite for all things Chinese. Britain's solution to the trade imbalance was to grow mass-produced opium in stolen Bengal and sell that to China. Up until then, opium had been an expensive habit only used by the wealthiest Chinese. War being economics by other means, when the Chinese government objected to their country being flooded with narcotics, Britain forced these massive industrial quantities of opium onto them at gunpoint, turning an expensive aristocratic vice into a nationwide addiction. Chinese were slaughtered, their lands pillaged, the summer palace burnt to the ground by British and French soldiers as punishment for not being submissive enough. They were actually ordered to do that by Lord Elgin. If you think of the Elgin marbles in the British Museum, he had quite a track record. Notoriously unfair treaties were used to carve up China, which was divided between Western imperial powers, with Britain grabbing Hong Kong as a colony until it was finally returned in 1997. And around the same period, the invention of the Glass-Wardian case enabled Robert Fortune to steal China's tea plants and transport them to India, where the British set up a rival tea industry in possibly the first case of industrial espionage, intellectual property rights meaning very little to the invaders. Fast forward to the modern era. A couple of revolutions, 2 world wars, a vicious Korean War, and a rapprochement of sorts with the United States later. Today, China is the factory of the world, specializing in making our stuff. iPhones, electronic kit, solar panels, cotton, everything from foodstuffs to 5G are the new porcelain, silks, and tea of the 21st century. It's taken nearly 50 years into its modern era for China to drag itself out of the hellscape inflicted by the Western powers. It's raised 850 million human beings out of absolute poverty, created a growing middle class 550 million strong, that's almost twice the size of the US population, and it's established the Belt and Road Initiative that promises to do for poorer economies what China has done for its own. China's investing in Africa and building their infrastructure at much lower interest rates than the World Bank charges, so we no longer need Bono to front drop the debt campaigns. As well as eradicating poverty while we implode, China is the world's biggest investor in renewable energy, vital in the fight against climate change. But some people in the West simply can't bear the idea of Chinese excelling or being given credit for anything. Just as the Chinese economy draws level with the US in this classic Thucydides trap point, the declining superpower goes on the attack in a poisonous one-sided case for the prosecution with no judicially verifiable evidence or right of reply, involving a wall of hate and daily monstering of America's upcoming rival. America could have continued working together with China in a multipolar world, but instead throws huge resources at waging opium wars too, dragging in some of the worst perpetrators who gained from the 19th century imperialist atrocity. Billions are spent on character assassinating propaganda, economic war, and actual weaponry to ensure the Chinese model doesn't give the public any big ideas that there might be a better system that's working for their own people. The absurdity that caps all of this for me is that the Brexiteers, from Boris Johnson to Nigel Farage, used the promise of yummy trade deals with China to persuade Brits to vote to leave the EU. And the minute Brexit's sewn up, we send a war fleet to China's backyard. Taking back control has meant handing control to a waning America that's tearing itself apart and doing their bidding even when it hurts us, such as ripping out billions of pounds worth of 5G infrastructure we badly need and spending our remaining treasure on whipping up a war with a nuclear power. And now we prostrate ourselves as America's airstrip won. In the West's rewrite of history, we have always been at war with East Asia. We're now halfway through 2021. This conflict has been building for years. John Pilger even made a film in 2016 warning about the coming war on China. Trump fired the first salvo in his trade war shakedown in 2018, and we've sent warships. So instead of maintaining its own steady course, Britain nails itself to the USS Titanic and tries to sink our global lifeboat in what could end up as a horrific worldwide war. China is both scapegoat and a cynical diversion from Brexit chaos, an enfeebled economy, and catastrophic COVID mishandling. With another opium war brewing, let's hope it's first time as tragedy, second time as farce. The sensible option would be not to go there at all. Thank you.